We are now live on YouTube. Councilmember Montgomery.
Hey, Mayor Hop, how are you?
Doing well, you, sir?
Good.
Good. It's 7 p.m. I'd like to call Ferrisburg City Council meeting tonight to order. Monday, March 1st, 2021, 7 p.m. Pursuant to Public Act 2228, the Ferrisburg City Council will conduct its business via Zoom to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Members of the public are welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Members of the public are not required to register or otherwise provide information to attend. Please utilize your mute function on your phone while the conference call. When appropriate, Mayor Hop will run the virtual meeting like a regular meeting. There will be opportunities at the beginning and end of the meeting for public comments. Pursuant to Public Act 228, each council member must declare their physical location, city, county, and state. Roll call, please.
Mayor Hop,
Here, City of Ferrisburg, Ottawa County, Michigan.
Councilmember DeWitt,
Here, City of Ferrisburg, Ottawa County, Michigan.
Councilmember O'Donnell,
Here, City of Ferrisburg, Ottawa County, Michigan.
Councilmember Carlson,
Here, City of Ferrisburg, Ottawa County, Michigan.
Councilmember Blease,
Here, City of Ferrisburg, Ottawa County, Michigan.
Councilmember Montgomery,
Here, City of Ferrisburg, Ottawa County, Michigan.
Councilmember Sias.
Here, City of Ferrisburg, Ottawa County, Michigan.
Thank you. At this time, please join me in the moment of silence to remember all the men and women in uniform and all those that have been affected by COVID-19. Thank you. At this time, please stand and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time on the agenda is for public comments. This time on the agenda is for any citizen to direct brief comments or question to City Council. Time for public comments will be given when the agenda item is discussed. If you have a comment or question, please raise your hand to be recognized by the mayor. After being recognized by the mayor, please stand to give your name and address for the record. Proceed with your comment or question. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. There are attendees that are here. I see no hands raised at this time. So we moved on the agenda item 6. Consideration approval of consent agenda. A, approve February 15, 2021 City Council meeting minutes as printed. B, approve the agreement with Republic Services to provide a one-day residential trash pickup for Saturday, May 15th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor through roll call, please.
Councilmember Sias,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson,
Aye.
Councilmember Blease,
Yes.
Councilmember Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilmember DeWitt.
Yeah.
Mayor Hop,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you. Moving down to item 7, new business. A, presentation, Kevin Keefe, Prina Newhoff, and Andy Campbell, Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors, LLC, Capital Improvements. This information was in your packet. I'll turn this discussion over to Craig. Mr. Bosinger?
This is some material that was presented from the SALT grant, and we have Kevin Keefe to walk us through this tonight.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Keefe.
Thank you. I just wanted to take time to thank Craig and the council for the opportunity to present some of the information from the SAW report that was completed at the end of 2020. If you don't recall, this was over a $700,000 grant program, and appreciate the opportunity to work with the city. They're now equipped with some very useful tools that they can use to make some informed decisions on their infrastructure for years to come. Matt now has videos, maps, record plans, condition ratings to help him decide on future budget and repairs that are needed. We have an extensive knowledge of the city system. Look forward to working with you on address some of the areas of concern. We provided a summary of the sanitary sewer system previously. Want to do the same for the storm sewer and the roadways within the city. And I think everybody has the packet. Am I able to share my screen?
Just hang on here, I'll get you there.
Each council member received this packet this past week, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kevin, you should be all set.
All right, are you seeing a pie chart there with the Pacer ratings?
No,
Yeah.
No,
Is that coming through yet?
no. We have
There
it
we
now,
go.
thank you.
All right, so that screen that I'm sharing here, we went through and did a condition rating on the streets within the city. And those are ranked basically on a 1 through 10 rating. And as you can see here, the 1, 2s, and 3s are the failed, poor, or poor conditions of the streets, and those add up to about 40% of the city streets. We also put that together into we did a similar for the storm and the catch basins. Those look like they were in better conditions with that, where 70 to 80% of those are in the good or very good conditions with some minor maintenance that are needed. From this information, we went through and put together a capital improvement breakdown for the 4 different entities for the sanitary, the water, storm, and road. And as you can see, some of these numbers start to become quite large in the road category. With the water and the sewer, you've done some recent improvements on those with pump stations and the river crossing pipe. But some of the road situations are in need of repairs, and that's we're bringing in Andy Campbell from Baker Tilly to discuss some of those items today. Through this, we also went through a implementation timeline that Craig and Matt reviewed some of the condition assessments. These are in your packet, just kind of a breakout for the next 10 years of repairs throughout. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the details of that. I'm going to let Andy jump in and kind of go over those. Also, in your packet is a map of the different condition ratings. This is an example of projected years for the project on when things are anticipated for upgrades, and did similar for the storm side of things. And then there's also a PACER rating report that summarizes all the conditions of the roads throughout the city. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Andy Campbell from Baker Tilly. He's gone through some of the financial side of things for the SAW project with the sanitary, and has some ideas and possibilities for future funding for road improvements.
Kevin, I'm not seeing Andy on yet.
All right.
You want to come back to that, Mayor Hop?
Yes, that would be fine. Thank you. Kevin, are you able to stay on until he's
Yeah,
able
let
to
me,
join us?
let me double check if he's having some technical difficulties.
Okay. Just let us know or send something in the chat when you
Okay,
guys are ready, and we can bring you back, okay?
thanks.
Kevin, can you stop sharing your screen, please?
Yep,
Thanks.
sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay. So with item 7A being postponed at the moment, we will move down to 7B. Discussion, take action if appropriate to approve the proposal of Fleece and Vandenbrink Incorporated for $3,600 for 2 bridge inspections in 2021 and to the removal of loose concrete. I know that at the last council meeting, council members were asked or encouraged if they wanted to ask Fleece and Vandenbrink any questions via email to Mr. Bessinger. And I know that those were received and responses were included in our packet today. Are there any additional questions? Or we need a motion support and then we'll move into discussion?
I'll support.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, Your Honor.
Okay. So we have a motion and support. And welcome, Mr. Moxie. Thanks for joining us. So with that being said, we have the motion and support and further discussion regarding this agenda item.
I have,
Sure, Councilmember DeWitt. Yes, Councilmember DeWitt.
I have a question for Craig. Would it be better for us? Number one, I'm in favor of putting this out for bids. Number one. And number two, we're looking at 3 proposals or 2 proposals. One from Fleece and Vandenbrink, one from Preem and Newhoff. Preem and Newhoff has done our sewers and some road projects. And then we had another one just recently for Williams and Works. Would it be advantageous for us to use one contract engineering firm? What's happening is doing it piecemeal as we have been. We're paying the top dollar for each project on the bids for the engineering. I've talked to several colleagues in different areas, different cities and such what, townships, and they seem to be of the opinion if you use one contract engineers that the bids come in lower because they know that they are the preferred contractor for the city. I personally had an issue with this bridge report. I have to apologize. I did not have time this week to email questions to Craig for clarification. I had three funerals and I had to move a mother-in-law, so it was a busy week for me personally. I just reading through their reports. we shouldn't have to request clarification on, the items that we got the memo on here. These people have to realize we're not engineers. Most of the stuff is gobbledygook to us. We need it in more, I guess, layman terms to understand. And if we use Mr. Vandenbrink, Mr. Moxley, I would request that he kind of realize that we're not engineers. Some of this technical stuff, maybe he could put a little addendum on there that, you know, is more in English than engineerese, I guess. I don't know. It's hard for us to understand it as they write it.
So Councilmember DeWitt, at this time, do you have specific questions or anything that you needed clarification that Mr. Moxley would be able to assist you with at this point?
I do not. I didn't have time to go back through the last two reports. I read the last report. I read through the memo today, the questions that Tim asked and have answered. I guess one of the questions I have is, we have a state engineer looking at the bridge. We have Fleece and Vandenbrink looking at the bridge. How can we come up with two different ratings? I guess that the state requested that they upgrade or downgrade one of the ratings. I did not get a chance to, and I got to apologize, I did not have time. Mr. Moxley's on, perhaps he could answer that. Why, when the state inspector inspected something and they inspected something, why do we get different ratings?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you recall back to the 2019 work that we did back in August of 2019, in that report, we were looking at Williams and Works' report, and in that we described the process that they used, that different inspectors are going to disagree from time to time, and because of that, they consider plus or minus one rating point to be, you know, no real disagreement, that there is room for that within the process. The other thing is they didn't really disagree with our ratings. They said that to justify the ratings that we had, we needed to have the comments in the actual bridge safety inspection report, not just within the bridge inspection report as a whole. And so that's the main reason for the drastic change at face value, at least between the April and October reports, is that all of that information from the bridge inspection report was funneled into the bridge safety inspection report, just as a response to their comments.
So I guess my question to you would be, is there a way that, you know, you got to realize we're not engineers. You know, we're looking at this. Is there some more, you know, like easier way for you to present it that we can understand it in a more logical manner?
Yeah, and that's partially what our cover letter is designed to do, is to kind of take because the bridge safety inspection report is full of very technical language. What we try to do with that cover letter is make it more of an executive summary for you folks and try and include the most important information that you need to be thinking about there. My idea, and I addressed it in our memo, was that instead of just relying on the actual bridge safety inspection report with a lot of the technical jargon, we would do we'll do the cover letter, you know, we'll keep doing that going forward, but we will do that as well as the diagram so that you can see visually, because I'm a visual person. I know a lot of people are. Looking at it makes a lot more sense. You know, when you look at, there are 5 beams that have this kind of deterioration versus just a long litany of different defects, you know, within that report. So that was my suggestion. If you don't think that's enough, we can certainly go back to the drawing board and see what we can come up with.
I believe that would be sufficient, that council's able to decipher the information then with the diagrams too. So it's both, you know, you have it in writing, but then also the visual for the different diagrams. So Councilmember DeWitt, do you have anything more, or can we move on to another council member?
You can move on.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Donnell, were you satisfied with the information that was in the response from Mr. Moxie, back to your inquiries.
To a point. I was able to go back and look at some old reports. And a couple of the other engineering firm, I believe is Williams Works, they did, when they gave us the report, did use the diagrams, which is nice. And also they came and after the report and was there to answer questions. The I guess one of the concerns I have is the scope or the change. If you could highlight the changes in the between the reports, such as the crack that's through a couple of the headers. When Councilmember DeWitt and I specifically asked about the substructure, we were kind of, I personally felt like it was, I was blown off. It was like, okay, we'll take care of that. And even when pressed, you know, we want to know information. We were not given any information about that. And I still see a lot of concerns about some of the ratings. Just a point of information, of the 60 bridges that were closed that are currently under funding consideration, 26 have an overall better ratings than our bridge. 6 are equal to our bridge. 7 have better in all areas, and 16 have better ratings in their substructure. And I'm just concerned as to what point do we say enough is enough? And you know, those bridges are closed and they have higher ratings than what we have. What do you consider to the point where you would suggest that we close down the bridge?
When the analysis, that is exactly what the load rating analysis process does, is it takes the bridge in its current condition, accounting for all of the things we see, all of the things we know about from testing, and looks at what is the load capacity of this bridge. And if it's safe to carry the loads at a reduced level like it is, you leave it open. If it needs to get lowered, it may need to in future years. But really it's using science, it's using engineering science to figure out what is safe and what is not.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there additional comments or questions for council members, for Mr. Moxie or for Mr. Bezinger at this time regarding this motion that's on the table?
Your Honor, with
Yes.
the motion, I see in the letter, they still have included the $800 for that we've already approved. I want to make sure we only approve the 3,600 that's remaining.
Okay.
Actually, I'm not sure what the motion was for, but
It was for 3,600, whatever the discussion was.
It was for $3,600 for the 2 bridge inspections and the removal of the loose concrete.
okay, thank you.
So in the last information we received from Police in Vandenbrink, the removal of that loose concrete was priced out at $800.
I guess I have one more question, if I may, Your Honor.
Yes.
What concrete needs to be removed? Where's that located at?
Yeah, so this is primarily the bottom of the box beams as the concrete delaminates, we call it, as it breaks loose from the mass of the beams, but hasn't spalled. A spall is when it completely falls off. That was something that's been a recommendation even before our time, was that be removed on a periodic basis so that it doesn't fall on a boater. That would be the worst case scenario. And the recommendation was to have it done periodically. We thought annually was probably good enough to try and get that before the boating season. If you'd like it done more often, it certainly can be, but that was our comfort level with it.
Mm-hmm.
Could we also get a recommendation of some way to protect our boaters from any possible crackage that occurs in between the removals?
Yeah, I mean, there are various fall protection measures that we've used in other types of structures. What MDOT does on a lot of their bridges is they put plywood false work underneath. You could certainly, come up with a system of that nature, but the problem with that is, and MDOT has shied away from that even, is you have to remove that every time to get at it and inspect it. So some kind of a fall protection type kit, some kind of a netting might be your best bet if you really wanted a high level of safety there.
Okay, I know right now it's we have a very low clearance,
Mhm.
and when you have antennas or superstructures on boats that go under there and rub against the bridge, something. I'm thinking maybe we should take a look at some type of fall protection under there in the future.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm. Councilmember DeWitt, before we return to you, is there any other council member who has questions or comments for Mr. Moxie at this time?
Your
Yes,
Honor,
Councilmember Sias.
I'd like to say something. First of all, I thank you, John, for coming out again tonight and working with the city council. I believe Fleece and Vanderbrink have been very patient and understanding and taken some painstaking time out of their own schedules to go above and beyond what normally you would have to do, with most inspections. And I appreciate your time and coming out tonight and doing this again. Sometimes I feel like council is treating FMV kind of unfairly and questioning their expertise and their knowledge in the subject. They have several references all over West Michigan. You're free to look at them. They've done a lot of jobs and they've gotten excellent marks by most of those municipalities. And I look over John's education and the training he has here, and John's an engineer, and that's what we need in times like this. We need an expert like John to come in and say, look, there's things that are bad with your bridge. Your bridge is sick. It needs work, and it's the clock is ticking on this bridge, and we need to address things right now. But overall, John is saying that overall this structure is stable and it's safe. And I think that we should stay with F&B. I think they've been a great company to work with, very understanding. And the language between the reports between William and Works, they were doing the reports before I came on council, but I've read their reports and the language is the same with William and Works and FMV, almost some of it exact. So I don't know why FMV is now being asked to change the language on the reports. When it was William and Works, the language was fine. And there's just, I don't know if it was because Fleece and Vanderbrink was brought in from an outside entity, not council, and that's the problem. But I appreciate your time, John, and I will support you. I think your prices are right where they should be for the job you guys are performing out there with underwater inspections and inspections over the bridge. $6,300 for 2 bridge inspections and cleaning up concrete sounds very reasonable to me. I don't know why this would have to go out to bid, but I'll leave that to council, and that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
that.
you, Councilmember Sias. But remember, each of us are here and we do our due diligence. So by asking questions, that is why we're put on council.
I understand that.
Okay.
I do, and I'm not attacking anybody. I'm just saying that sometimes, I get a little frustrated, and John has been asked over and over again, and he has the credentials. I mean, I don't have the credentials. Nobody on council has the credentials he has, and sometimes I feel like we're questioning his expertise and his knowledge, and I don't think that's fair to John.
Okay, thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing. Councilmember DeWitt. Councilmember
Yeah, a
DeWitt.
couple things. Yeah, a couple things. John, how much concrete is actually leaching off the bridges, as it were, to damage boats? I mean, how much is actually that loose that it's a concern?
Yeah, it isn't much. Last year, I think we pulled about a half of a 5-gallon bucket off when all was said and done. So it isn't that much, and it's probably less this year because it hadn't been done, I don't think, before. Whatever fell off had just fallen off by nature. So I would expect less than that this year. I will say any piece that falls off is potentially life endangering.
Mhm.
But it hasn't been, massive quantities by any means. If this bridge wasn't over like a waterway that people were boating, I don't think we would think twice about, removing that. We would let nature take its course.
So what you're saying is it's not a major concern, but it is a concern we need to address.
Correct.
Okay, the other question I have is one of the things with Williams and Works, when they did a inspection, they provided us with a report. They came to city council, they answered questions of anything we had, any questions we had in the report to elaborate on and to expand on if necessary. That would go a long way in my mind to ease my concerns. Is that a possibility that when you provide us with a report, you can come before council and answer questions regarding the report? I realize that takes time out of your night, but you got to understand where we're at. We have legitimate questions that I feel are not per se being answered.
I
Do you
think
understand where I'm coming from?
if I can interject, I believe that Mr. Moxie and others from Fleece and Vandenbrink have been present when reports were provided to council, and they have been available for questions and answers at that point. And also, I know that Mr. Moxie has been very flexible in responding back to specific questions that council members have provided to Mr. Bessinger, especially over this past couple of weeks. So with that, I really appreciate that, Mr. Moxie, for your flexibility and your willingness to assist us as needed.
Yes, I don't believe we attended a council meeting to present either of the 2020 reports, if that's what the comment was related to. But with Zoom technology, it is not much of an inconvenience at all to do this. I'm happy to do this.
Mhm. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm. So at this time, is there any additional questions or comments before we move to a vote? Yes,
I have
Councilmember
one.
Montgomery.
So I'd just like to reiterate the mayor and Councilman Size's thanks, Mr. Moxie, for you spend your time with us. I would ask that if we do vote this in and you guys are the successful bidder, is it too much to ask that when you guys are removing the concrete, you provide us with an answer back as to if you recommend some sort of a catch and what your recommendation would be for that under the bridge guard to catch additional falling cement if necessary?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll quantify it a little bit better than what we did, just off the cuff by the bucket full, and we'll give you some ideas if you want to take that route.
Thank you.
With the lake level now receding some, there's still, I know, and it was brought up earlier, with boat traffic going underneath the bridge, and some of the arches and that do get stuck. I know this is probably for a different conversation, but is there materials that would be viable that would still be able to withhold in the integrity of it if a boat goes under it and catches any part of it? Or would it just be left better to check on it during your 2 inspections and remove any type of loose concrete at that point?
Is your concern about somebody catching some of that loose concrete and pulling it off as they go under? Was that?
No, not necessarily. I must have misspoke myself. It would be in regards to whatever type of safety protection barrier that you would apply underneath the bridge.
Yes, yeah, the netting that I'm thinking of that we did on it was a water treatment plant. It does hang under the bridge to some
Mhm.
degree. We'd have to get it tight to the bottom of the beams to keep it up out of boaters' way. But it very, very, non-invasive, once you get it in
Okay.
and get it secured.
Because my family does live very close to the bridge, and we've witnessed multiple boats actually destroying canvases and the arches and that when they're trying to navigate underneath that bridge. So just taking that into consideration when options are available. So,
Sure. Yeah. What I'm thinking of would be damaged by the boat instead of vice versa.
okay,
It would be sacrificial in that way.
okay, thank you. So at this point, roll call, please, on the motion on the table.
Councilmember Carlson,
Yes.
Councilmember Blees,
yes,
Councilmember Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilmember DeWitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Sias,
Yes.
Mayor Hop,
Yes,
motion passed.
thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you very
everyone.
much, Mr. Moxie, for your time tonight. Appreciate it. Okay, I see Mr. Campbell is back with Mr. Keefe. So we will move back to agenda item 7A, the presentation of Mr. Keefe from Preen and Newhoff and Mr. Campbell from Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors LLC Capital Improvements.
Thanks. Andy's joined us now. Sorry for the delay with that. Andy,
That's
I
okay.
went over some initial ratings and that, and a little bit on the capital improvement plan, and I'll turn it over to you.
Appreciate it. Sorry about being a little late, and with this, these times, we stack meetings a lot of times on Monday and Tuesday night, and my 6 o'clock ran over, unfortunately, so. But we're on now. Let's talk about street improvements, road and storm, and hopefully gonna be pretty quick. I can do this a very in-depth discussion if you want to get to that point at some other time, but tonight I think it would be best to kind of introduce the topic and to go over what just the kind of confirm what you guys are facing and a lot of other communities in the state are facing when you are a relatively small city or village. I'm going to go through a PowerPoint that kind of lays out what we're seeing and I'll give you some of my thoughts in terms of we work with 400 or so communities in the state, so we have a pretty good handle on what's going on with the state in terms of infrastructure, financing, and what is happening in terms of communities trying to pay for this stuff. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to stop me throughout. You don't have to wait till the end. Just stop me here. But we're also going to go through what the possible solutions are and what is available for the city to address these needs and not just go over the problem. So there are some solutions. Most of the time, I mean, the reality, just as a preface, it's going to involve some sort of tax. So, but that's the reality typically with road, storm, bridge. It all usually comes from taxes one way or the other, either from the state or locally. So let's go through that. I'm going to share my screen here. So on this, infrastructure is in terms of water and sewer, is a portion of this discussion. But tonight we're going to concentrate on the other portion because the reality is that water and sewer is a lot easier, you would say, to fund because you control the rates on that. So if you have an infrastructure project that's water or sewer, it may not be fantastic, but you can just raise the rate and thus you can get the funding needed to make that fix. A lot of times when you're talking standalone road projects, standalone storm projects, standalone bridge projects, it's a lot harder discussion because it's going to come from taxes typically. And you may or may not have the ability to do so without some sort of vote or something that's not just at the will of the council. So we're going to go through and talk about millages in terms of your city millage and how you compare. I did just a canvassing of the other cities and villages in your area, and I'll talk about other ones that around the state too, if you want to, in terms of where you compare on your current operating millage. We're going to talk about storm sewer and the current developments in the legislature about storm sewer, roads, bridge. I heard the talk about the bridge, and I know that was something that really, when we first came on, and that was what, 2019 was when we first started working with the city. That was one of the first discussions that we had at our meeting was on the bridge, and that there was a possible need to redo the bridge that was city owned. So sounds like that's still a hot topic, and we can go over that. Talked about city, like millage comparisons with other communities, and then how you can plan for this in the future, how you can solve these issues. So this stuff, and Kevin, I think probably went over this with you already, but this is just directly from Bryony Newhoff's forecast. So what I wanted to show here is that a lot of the infrastructure that you're talking about in terms of needing to pay over the next few years is not related to water and sewer. So if you see like your sanitary projects, a lot of it on the sanitary side, it's because you're part of the authority. So a lot of the plant costs are going to be taken care of by the authority. But on the collection side, you still have issues that need to be addressed that are city-owned assets. But relatively speaking, those are pretty low dollar amounts comparatively to the other categories. Same with water. There's a couple bigger projects, 400 plus for a couple years, but again, relatively speaking, manageable. You start to see an increase in the storm, although it's the big project is about 8 years out. Storm sewer.
Excuse me, just a moment, please. I'm going to call point of order on Councilmember Carlson. Please stay focused and without having sidebar conversations during a meeting. Thank you. I apologize for that, sir.
Yeah, no problem. So storm sewer, one thing that you have to note is that this is a developing thing in the state of Michigan. It's in theory, the current law says that you cannot do a third utility. There are states that have storm sewer utilities and they charge rates for their storm sewer. There are communities in Michigan that are currently doing storm sewer utility rates. So there are communities in Michigan. Now, if you talk to an attorney, and the ones that we work with extensively, they will say that there is no enabling act right now to do that. And a city, we always say that a city is not like a private citizen. A private citizen can do anything you want unless there's a law that says you can't. In terms of city world, it's the opposite. A city has to point to some law that enables you to do things. So you have an enabling act to do your budget, enabling act to do debt, enabling act to do anything. That's the case with storm sewer, is that there's been multiple lawsuits on storm sewer. Multiple communities have lost those lawsuits, but there are still communities that do storm sewer rates. The reality is that those communities have taken the position, I don't know, rightfully or wrongfully, to be honest with you, but that they basically, in my opinion, have said that we can't pay for it in any other way. The state of Michigan has not given us an option to do this without doing some sort of utility. So we're going to do it until we get sued or whatever it may be. But there are communities, and they're typically the really big communities. So City of Detroit, City of Ann Arbor are two of the the biggest ones, obviously, that do storm sewer utility rates. On a side note, that is if you want to go down that path, that is a very intense process if you want to do it right. And by right, I mean what's currently on what the city of Detroit and Ann Arbor is doing. This is not something like water and sewer where you just say, hey, our flat fee is $20 a month and every resident pays $20 a month. When you do a storm system, most of the time it's done on the non-pervious area of the property. So it's a per property assessment, typically done by satellite, and you're measuring the non-pervious area. So like the roof, if it goes to the city sewer, the driveway, if it's not a gravel driveway and it drains to the city sewer. But you're also giving credits if people have rain catches, if they have a retention pond in their backyard where their water goes to that instead of the city sewer, if their driveway is angled to the back of their property instead of going to the city sewer in the front of the property, that is all assessed. And so you get basically like everybody is a different rate basically because you have to give credits for all these different things. And you can't just say every resident's $10 a month because that's how we're going to pay for it. That's been struck down time and time again. That's the Bolt versus Lansing case is the most prominent one in the 90s, and where the city of Lansing, it was called the rain tax case, where the city of Lansing lost because they did that blanket charge per resident. So long story about storm sewer, but the reality is that these are costs that you're going to have to pay, and most of the time it's going to have to come from general fund in one way or another for the time being, unless you're willing to undertake a very arduous scope to instill a storm sewer utility, which in your case, the 2029 project, which I'm sure Kevin can give you a better detail about what that is, but that is a huge project, relatively speaking, for the city. The other ones are relatively smaller. Is it worth it trying to pay someone to instill a storm sewer utility that's going to be X number of dollars to get that underway? And then you're still at least right now, you could still be sued and lose if somebody takes offense to that. So that storm sewer is a difficult discussion in Michigan right now. The reality is it's got to come from general fund in one way or another. The projection from Prine and Newhoff is just short of 3.6 million in 10 years. On the road side, this is what most small villages and cities are seeing in Michigan. This is the unfortunate part of road funding. I don't like playing the politics game. I don't really get involved in that, but in my opinion, I mean, no one's, from my stay in doing this municipal advising, no one's come up with the solution yet. There's been a lot of talk from both sides, but the reality is that communities across the state do not get the funding they need to maintain roads. Ag 51 money, from what we hear from every single client, is that it only pays for cold patching and maybe some snow plowing, but a lot of times it's not even enough to do that on a given year. They're trying to do more. They're trying, like you saw a few years ago under Governor Snyder, they did like one-time increases to help with funding. Governor Whitmer's talking about possibly doing an additional tax on the gas side or some other funding structures there. The reality is that for the time being, the city is on its own for doing these capital improvement projects. And we got to come up with the funding. Most of the time it's got to come from some sort of tax because the state funding is just not there for it. This is going to be a big question mark, really, when you start talking about where are the funds going to come from. I mean, almost $12 million based on today's estimates for roads in the next 8 years. And I know Kevin's got some assumptions in there for inflation, but that's also assuming, I mean, construction costs continue to rise every year, even though in pandemic right now, but I mean, construction costs are still rising significantly. So not to scare anybody, but it is something we gotta look at and figure out what roads we need to repair, how we're gonna repair them, what's the most cost-effective way to do this, because the city is on the hook for the roads that are not state or federally funded. The yearly breakdown, so this is kind of highlighting what I talked about before, and the water and sewer is just a small part of this, the blue and the red. It really comes down to purple and green, which is road and storm, and that's where taxes come into play. So leading into this discussion, when I believe this was at the first meeting again back in 2019, I remember at either at that meeting or a different meeting, we were talking with Craig and Debbie about what the issues were with the city and capital improvement wise and what to expect on the SAW grant for the sewer and all that. And your L4029, which is your taxing form that goes to the state, was brought up, and you were below 8 mils. And I was taken aback because I was thinking, okay, something's not right here, because a city operating with 8 mils doesn't make any sense. I mean, initially I wrote it off as like, man, I might have just asked them the wrong question or something like that. I'll look at the document later and see if that's correct, because I'm assuming that was a portion of it, or I asked the wrong question and got the wrong answer type of thing. But sure enough, you're L4029, Debbie sent it over, and you're below 8 mils. And to be honest with you, to be perfectly candid with you, I don't know how a city is functioning with less than 8 mils. You have a huge amount of responsibilities in terms of capital improvements, and most cities are double what you are in terms of millages. There's many cities that are 15, and that's pretty, I mean, that's just because they've been rolled back with Headley. I'm assuming if you don't know what Headley is, stop me, but I'm assuming everybody on council knows the Headley amendment and all that stuff. But the reality is that, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion right now, is that the city has to look at this extensively on what to possibly do with your charter limit. Trying to operate a city on what is now less than 7.8788 mils in 2020 is going to be, I honestly don't know how you're going to do it, because you've got the roads, you got the storm, and then we haven't even talked about the bridge yet. So that's one thing that I mentioned to Craig and Debbie, is that, and this conversation was basically around that, was just to give you, like, again, we work with 400 communities. We've seen it all in terms of good communities, bad communities, good capital improvement plans, bad ones. Who is keeping up, who's not? I mean, this is a pretty pretty interesting time for the city, if you want to put it like that, that you could go down one or two forks in the road based on your capital improvement plan. And you've got some big numbers coming up. And I think if you put it off too much further, because, and from my understanding, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the budget's not there to pay for those capital improvement projects. So if we continue to put those off, the roads are going to continue to crumble. The bridge, you're going to continue to see more and more of it crumbling away. And the money is just not going to be there to repair this stuff, and the costs are going to continue to rise. So it's not a fun discussion. It's not a discussion I take lightly. I don't live in the city, so I understand that it's not affecting me personally, but it also is something that, from our standpoint as an advisor, we want to make sure that you see from a third party, completely unbiased, looking in from the outside, this is not something that's typically financially possible to do. So the money to come for these projects typically comes from taxes one way or another, unless you're going to do special assessments. And special assessments has gone out of style in the state for one reason or another, but it's possible to do road special assessments and to specially assess the property owners for roads. I haven't seen it done for storm sewer personally. It might be possible, but I haven't seen it done for storms. It's not done for bridges, obviously. But if you don't do special assessments and you're not going to specially assess the repair to the direct property owners in front of the road, it's going to come from an increase in taxes, either by doing what is commonly called a Headley override, where you take your Headley back to what it was before. So you do a vote of the people to reset your limit back to 11, and then you continue to do Headley there again. It continues to roll back again, or you could do a charter amendment, which again requires a vote of the people, and that would be to raise your charter to X from 11 up to 20. You can go up to 20 as a city. You're currently maxed out on your Headley limit is 7.8788 mils. You're currently maxed out on that for 2020. So there's no room for the council to raise taxes to get money for these improvements. It's all going to come down to a vote one way or the other if you want to tackle these capital improvement projects without special assessments. This is something I wanted to talk about and go through, and this is what was, to me, what I was talking to Debbie and Craig about in the working group meeting, is that this is why I was so shocked that you were able to operate with the amount of millage that you're funding right now. There are communities that are double where you're at, and you're at 8.8148 in 2020 with a couple extra ones that you have on your taxpayers, if you want to include those in the discussion for motor equipment and bike path. But the reality is that, I mean, you're looking at these communities, and Grand Haven's right next door to you. They're at 14.4 and change. Spring Lake Village is 11.11. Villages are always a little bit different too, because they might have, a lot of times villages have it more broken up than just we do 11 as a city. I wasn't completely sure, but sometimes villages have, like, they have theirs broken up by different sections, and that's according to the Village Act. But I believe that they're only at 11.11. North Muskegon, those ones are right around 12. So there's a lot of communities that are a lot more millage that are, I mean, in similar locations. You got some similar size cities as well that are much higher, comparatively speaking, than Perrysburg. I mean, this is all, it's not a negative conversation. I mean, this is all positive that you've been able to pay for everything with keeping taxpayers, the levy down so much. But the reality is that is causing you to have these capital improvement problems and the funding concerns, because we're not getting enough money to do these capital improvements. So they just keep stacking up on us, and then the costs get higher, and they continue to stack up, and the costs get higher again. And that's where we come into a discussion about, does it make sense to vote a new bridge and stuff like that, because we don't have the money to do a major repair on it. So that is really the gist of the overall tonight. I mean, I do want to talk about what kind of money you could get from, just to jog everybody's memory. I mean, your taxable value for 2020 was just shy of 200 million. 1 mil means just shy of $200,000 of annual revenue to you. And what does this mean in terms of our capital improvement plan? To give you an idea, the roadside alone, again, just to give you, I'm not saying that you got to do this capital improvement plan or anything, but I just want to give it in real purposes what this would mean to the community is that if you were to tackle that road capital improvement plan that we talked about earlier in terms of the 8-year plan that Prine Newhoff helped you come up with on the roadside, there's a structuring way that you can do bonds. So you don't want to do that all at once typically because one, you've got improvements structured over 8 years, but two, you can't do all those projects at once and completely gridlock the city. And especially when you talk about roads, you have to do a strategic plan that Kevin and his team come up with to kind of go around the city and do certain roads at certain times based on how bad they are, where they're located in the city. And if you shut down this road, can you shut down that road, or is everybody going to be rerouted through that road? It becomes very technical in terms of roads, especially for small communities. But to do a 3-series plan to get your road plan done, that would be about 3.75 mils. So just on the roadside, you're talking about needing an extra, call it $750,000 or so a year if you bonded for all that instead of doing it by cash, to come up with the funds to do that road plan. Then we've got to talk about the storm and the bridge on the side. So it is possible, and what I kind of wanted to show you was that if you look at that scenario, and I've got the financials, I can send them to Craig and Debbie to show you, to back that up and show you how that works. But again, tonight, just more of an overview. If you look at the road plan and you add 3.75, you'd be at 12.5. You start to move up into more of the mid-range for the communities in your greater area. If you now start talking about adding a bridge in there too, you may be, maybe just coincidentally, might be by where Grand Haven is. So that's the overall, is that these expenses, these capital improvements are costly. It's going to take a lot for the city to maintain this, but the overall is that it is possible to do. It's just that you've got to get the millage up by a vote of the people in order to do these projects. So there's really no way around it. That's the only way to do major road and bridges, to do it on taxes. So overall, there's different options based on the type of improvement, and happy to talk about this more in detail once you get, if the best thing to do from here is to start targeting like, hey, we want to do these 3 projects in the next couple of years. Then you start getting into actual analysis on what that actually comes down to on voting something, or are you going to do special assessments on this road? All these different things about what the intricacies of municipal finance are. But the reality is that the first thing we need to do is kind of brush up, what does the city want to tackle? You got a capital improvement plan. Are you going to go after this on the exact plan that Prine Newhoff has put forward? Are you going to modify it and move things around here and there? Then you kind of go through the discussion of, what do we have to vote? Are we going to do a charter amendment? Are we going to vote a bond issue? Are you going to vote it separately? Are you going to vote the bridge separately from doing roads? Or does that make sense? Is there an advantage? A lot of that stuff comes later on in the process, but it really first starts with what does the city and what does the council want to do, and what do you need to do in the next few years to maintain everything. Any questions, comments?
John, I have a question.
Yes.
What is the deal with the storm sewers that we have such a dramatic increase in cost in 2029? Is there something mandated by the state that we have to do?
I think part of that is coming from some of the condition assessments and values assigned to projects based on the age of piping. A lot of the sanitary sewer and that was put in that 1979, 80 range. So 50 years out, we start to look at it as a possibility that there may be improvements that need to be done. So that's part of the cost. And then a lot of it is part of the roads that are recommended for improvements in those years have storm sewer involved with them.
So we need to upgrade the storm sewer when we do the road?
Correct, typically.
Okay. All right, thank you. That just shocked me that we're talking at, what, $1.7 million in 2029.
Right. And I can take a better look at that because I did notice when Andy pulled that up, the number was exactly the same as the road category. So there is a chance that that might be pulled over in the graph or something. There could be an error possibly in that, but.
But typically when we do a road, we get a grant for storm sewer improvements at that time, don't we? Or is that a city responsibility?
Depending on the road type that it is, if it's through Act 51 agency, that may be the case, but a lot of your roads would have to be city funded entirely. And that would include the storm side of things. Unless Craig, you want to add to that?
Okay, thank you.
Did you have additional information, Mr. Bessinger?
No, I think Kevin covered it.
Okay.
You know, we have 10 miles of local streets, so those are all 100% city cost. And even on the major roads, when we do get money from the federal highway and through our MPO, you know, that barely covers the road improvements. It doesn't. So anything else, you know, storm sewers is typically a city cost because there's not enough funds coming from the MPO to tackle all that.
Right. Any other additional questions or comments for either Mr. Campbell or Mr. Keefe at this point? I want to thank you both so much for all of this information that you prepared and for the presentation tonight. Definitely, we will be coming back around and reviewing this probably in the near future. So thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving down to our next agenda item 7C. Discussion, take action if appropriate to approve a recommendation from Kitchell-Linquist-Hartford Dune Preserve Board to approve a quote from Carno for $31,795.50 over a 3-year period of time for invasive species removal at the Kitchell-Linquist-Hartford Dune Preserve.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay. You're muted.
Support.
Motion and support. Okay. Further discussion regarding this.
Yeah, I have a question for Craig or perhaps Richard. Couple of years, 2 years ago, we did basically the same thing for $6,000. Was that just a localized thing, or was that the whole park?
That was one section of Honeysuckle, and actually it was we wanted to do $12,000 worth, but we went in there and did $6,000 to see how it turned out. The board was pretty satisfied with the work done and how it made it manageable to control in that area now. So that was the goal, is to get it down to a manageable area where the board can take care of invasive species without having to hire it out.
So basically what I'm hearing is you are in favor of us voting on this?
Yeah, this is from the board recommendation to approve this, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other additional comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember Montgomery.
Yeah, Craig, can you clarify in the quote you sent us is talking about the money from the Grand Haven Community Foundation?
Right, so the Dune Preserve is self-sufficient. It doesn't really take any money from the city to manage that property. So over the years, the board has done fundraising, and that money is held at the Grand Haven Community Foundation, We have two funds over there, an endowment fund, and we have an operating fund, which is used to maintain the reserve.
So this money would come from that then, or and not from our general fund?
That's correct. It was not city expenses. It's a board expense.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Blease,
Yes.
Councilmember Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilmember DeWitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Sias,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlson,
Yes.
Mayor Hop,
Yes,
motion passed.
thank you. Moving down to item 7D, discussion take action if appropriate to approve a quote from Ottawa County for $20,592 for new desktop hardware and the installation of the equipment.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Support.
Motion support. Further discussion regarding this purchase. Information was in our packet to review. Definitely there's a need for the city to upgrade.
Mhm.
Yes, Councilmember DeWitt.
Craig, didn't we upgrade the computers a couple of years ago?
It was 4 years ago. We've been on a rotation of every 4 years, replacing the computers at City Hall.
What did we do a couple of years ago? We put a couple, 10, 15,000 in City Hall computers. What was that for?
It was 2018 is the last time we did any upgrades to the computers. And at that time, we switched over to Ottawa County to do our IT, and they host it with the server. So the city doesn't have to purchase a service anymore. Everything's hosted on the Ottawa County server. And the reason we go every 4 years is because it gets to be after 4 years, it's just hard to get parts for these computers anymore. And they recommend that usually the lifespan on a business computer is 3 years, but we've been stretching it to 4 years.
Okay, did we order a bunch of computers for the Public Works for water? Am I confusing the things here?
The Public Works Department got some new hardware through the SAW grant, and that just got put into service a couple months ago.
Okay, I must be confusing a couple different things here. Okay, thank you.
And then, Mr. Bessinger, back in 2018, that also included the live stream in the council chamber, correct? That was part of that.
That was part of the package at that time, yes.
Okay. Any other additional comments or questions? Working in the business sector, in the educational field, I realize on the value of adequate equipment to make the workday things more efficient. And the way technology is advancing, I believe that the city needs to maintain on the upper handle of this and keep our equipment new to assist everyone. So with that being, Councilmember Montgomery, okay. At that point, hearing no more, any other conversations, discussion, we'll go for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilmember DeWitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Sias,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlson,
Yes.
Councilmember Blease,
Yes.
Mayor Hop,
Yes,
motion passed.
thank you. Moving down to agenda item 7E. Motion take action to schedule a work session as a regular agenda item on March 15. With our notes that we have from staff, it would be for the 21-22 city budget. Is there other work sessions that council members would like to consider at this time? What I would like, if possible, is to just a brief update with the strategic plan. If that's something that staff could update us with. This
Yes.
would give us an opportunity on the 15th to have a brief discussion.
Yep.
Okay, so we have our next work session scheduled for February 15th. Hearing no further discussion, we'll move down to item, we need to motion and support, please.
I make a motion to put those on the next work section.
I'll
Thank you.
support.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilmember DeWitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Sias,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlson,
Yes.
Councilmember Blease,
yes,
Councilmember Montgomery,
Yes.
Mayor Hop,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you. Moving down to our work session 7F, My City Pocket in Nexo. Staff provided information for us to review with 3 separate possible programs to put into use for our city residents, making things more user-friendly for them. Mr. Buzinger or Ms. Wieringa, either one who created this packet, do you have additional information, like from City of Grand Haven with what they use and their success rate, or how happy they are with the program that they're using?
We did not do any reference checking on any of this. This
Okay.
was from a carryover from the last work session where we discussed the My City Pocket. At that time, City Council asked for some more information regarding the Nixle. And that was included in your packet, and the cost for that annually was $2,600. And that would allow for two-way communication with residents, where the My City Pocket is just a one-way push out to the residents.
Thank you. I had asked for that to be on My Pocket to be on the work session, just for the fact of getting conversation started, so we could begin to look at opportunities that might be viable for our residents. Any other comments and questions from council members with this additional information? Councilmember O'Donnell.
Yes, looking at these, between the 3, I'm more inclined to go with the Nixle. It does cost approximately the same as the others, but it does allow for two-way communication, and it's not an app. It's something that we're not going to be asking the residents to have to go to the Google store or App Store or whatever. We can just go straight to the text and get it out there. So I would support the Nixle out of the
Okay.
3.
Any additional comments, questions from other council members? Councilmember, please.
yes. I didn't see any price information for the C Click Fix. Am I missing something there, or that was just information?
Back in 2019, it was $400 a month.
Okay, 400 a month. Okay. All right, thanks.
And Councilmember Sias.
Yeah, I agree with Tim O'Donnell on this. I think Nixle, for the cost and the simplicity of for the usage, I think is best for our community and our older citizen base. So I know my mother doesn't know how to download apps and do all that. So I think this would be the easiest and the best route forward for the city. So.
The consensus of council to move this to an agenda item to make a motion for determination.
I would recommend that.
Okay. Councilmember Montgomery.
Yeah. Before we, or maybe when we bring it to the motion, can we develop some sort of a business use case to how we plan to use this software, before we vote on spending money on it?
Sure. So with that, if we move this with approval of council to the work session on March 15, or possibly move it to the April work session, we'd be able to create that roadmap, I think, that you're seeking, and then we could discuss that and then clarify what we're specifically looking for to go for a vote. Would that make sense if we move this to the April work session?
Yes.
Okay. 'Cause I'm-
Just
Yes.
Just a couple thoughts on that people be thinking about is the groups that we would want to have. such as, I believe you can break it down into just messages just for the city council, messages for the city employees, and then a general message or a combination thereof.
Right, so we'd be able to create more of a roadmap and more of the details before we move forward with it. I think it would be best to go to a work session.
Mhm.
Is that an agreement to move it to the April work session?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. All right. Thank you, council, for that discussion. I appreciate that. So at this time, we are down to public comments. We have 2 attendees. I don't know if either wish to speak at this time. I'm not seeing either hands raised. So with that, we'll move down to reports. City manager.
No report.
Thank you. We'll move down to council members, and I'll just move across the top. So starting out with Councilmember Sias.
Beautification Commission meeting next Monday at 6 p.m. Via Zoom. I think, what's the easiest way if somebody wants to participate on the Zoom, Craig?
They can, all the information will be on the website on how to hook up to the Zoom meeting. Or
Okay.
if someone wants to send me an email, I'll be glad to send them the email and that information as well.
Okay. I'd like to broadcast a little bit, but there's been some questions of how do I get into the meeting or how do I attend, without, the invite. So, okay, I'll let them know to email you or go on the, and we're hoping for 4th of July. We got our fingers crossed, but we'll see. Hopefully the governor gets out enough vaccinations and changes the stipulations on the crowd control this summer, and we can pull something off. So cross our fingers on that. But that's the end of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem O'Donnell.
Thank you, Your Honor. Friday, via Zoom, I attended the Transportation Infrastructure and Technologies meeting with MML. We covered a very large number of topics, including 12 bills that are before the House and the Senate. But we also discussed the state budget, federal stimulus, transportation funding, including local gas tax and registration fees. Some things that affect us, water infrastructure bonding, basement flooding liability and stormwater utilities. I'm waiting on some information. I was just checking to see if I got any emails on some of the funding that may be available to us to handle our infrastructure issues. There's a one-time money that is in the budget currently, and there's also money in the federal stimulus. And the state, we encourage, they encourage us to contact our representatives in the legislature to pass the monies that are coming out to the local governments. So there's every local government is supposed to get something, and that's what I was waiting on email. I'll let you know when I get that. A 2% for the Act 51 and one other bill. We opposed several of the bills that would have given the state a lot more authority over us. And also thank you, Mayor Hop, for the getting involved with MML. They are very much on our side, and we get a lot of support, an extra voice in the legislature for our bridge funding.
Yes, definitely is an asset. So,
Yes, and they mentioned us by name at the meeting. So
awesome. Thank you.
and also Scott And Mayor Hop, thank you for your work on the MPO board. That really helped as well.
Yes. Thank
End of
you.
report.
Councilmember Blaze.
To elaborate on the MPO update, I've been meeting Zoom regularly with them. Smith's Bridge is still on their schedule for something like 2025. Of course, we don't know how much funding there is, but there's not a lot of funding. It's like a couple $1 million for, I don't know, a county and a half. So I'm not really counting on a whole bunch of money in that, but a little bit. It looks like on their schedule for 2023 is going to be some money for the Green Street, Grand Haven Township, Stearns Bayou Bridge repair. That's about $178,000, $142,000 from federal money, $8,900 from state, and then $26,000 from local. So just like a patch repair surface on that. The planning committee is going to meet this Thursday, March 4th. And then another reminder, I will not be attending the city council meeting on Monday, March 15th. End of report.
Thank you. Councilmember Carlson.
No report.
Thank you. Councilmember Montgomery.
Yeah, so the rec commission met and finalized what we think is our master plan for the Fire Barn Park, or what we would like it to look like. We have a community hearing planned for March 18th at 7 p.m. So we'll get that word out and hopefully have some active community participation to hear about what the community thinks of what we come up with, and any suggestions they have for change. I was able to meet with Andy Guy from the Friends of Grand Rapids Parks to talk about diversity and inclusion within their park systems. Made some good contacts and am in the process of reaching out to several various inclusion groups to host different things within our parks. One thing he said Grand Rapids focuses on is how they use their parks, and then they kind of cater their parks to who's using it and how it's being used. So I thought that was interesting. Had a really good conversation. I'm sure I'll have more going forward. I was also able to participate in the MML Core Weekender this past weekend. A lot of information passed, a lot of good information passed. Really enjoyed it, learned a lot. Look forward to doing a couple more. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Quick question regarding the public hearing for the master plan. Councilmember Montgomery, do you know, have there been other stakeholders that will be included in that meeting besides just residents?
Yes. So we invited everybody that was at our council meeting, as well as Pam Blah, to attend it.
Are there other stakeholders outside of the community that would be included also?
Yes, we invited, and Craig, you gotta help me with their name.
So we're gonna invite a couple, we're waiting for get this final site plan, then we're gonna send out to a couple of different organizations
Okay,
to get some feedback.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
To Councilmember DeWitt.
Yeah, I may or may not be here for the March 15th meeting. It's kind of up in the air. If I do join, it'd probably be from Florida. I guess I can do that through Zoom, so other than that, no report.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of things here. I've attended the Ottawa County, their ZBA and their Planning Commission trainings. I do that on an annual basis. Great information. If you haven't attended, it's free. Ottawa County offers that. The BLP Public Forum, and then also the historical marker is in the process of being created, and installation date and unveiling of it is scheduled for April 13th of 2021. Honor of Hezekiah Smith's purchase of his first piece of property along the banks of Smith's Bayou. So hope everybody can be there. End of report.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Okay. So moved. Have a great night.
Good night.
Support.
All right.